Hello. If you would all come in and grab a seat, more towards the front, then towards the back. We'll get started in a few minutes. Take your time, take your time.
You are a new Extra Mile Club member. You are a brand new Extra Mile Club member. As of yesterday, right? Or last week? Yeah. Congratulations. It's amazing. And you're one of the 27-year veterans too. I think there's less than 10, maybe less than 5. And I knew her sister, and so forth. Shirley, rest in peace. Yeah, let's see. We're going to be on Garden Road, open gardens. Yeah. And we have a big neighborhood. Got the neighborhood involved in doing stuff too. Some of the neighbors, we have new neighbors on Garden Road, which is fun. So we're recruiting people to do that all the time. Well, you just have to get the word out and people rise to it. So, yes. Is it great? Are you going to come up with Garden Road? Yeah.
I am going to begin us with a prayer, and then Ann's going to introduce Mitch. So it's 11:30, is it not, Mark?
Yes.
Okay.
It's showtime.
It's showtime. I'm going to, in all humility, Ann made this a bigger deal than by laminating it than I perhaps ever meant it to be. But I'm going to begin with the prayer that the Deerhurst disciples have with them when they ride on the RideForRoswell. Loving God, bless my legs. Today they make the wheels on my bike go round and round. Today they push and pull to find a cure. This day they are kingdom legs, trying to bring health, healing, and wholeness to those with cancer. And when my legs are tired, Lord, help me see that they are not the only legs trying to make a difference. Many legs, many wheels, many miles ridden, many prayers said, many people remembered. In your Son's name we pray and ride. Amen.
I am so excited to see so many of you here that are already connected with the ride. And now you know the man behind it, or will know more about him. I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Mitch. Mitch is the thought leader behind the RideForRoswell. He is fun and funny, not only once, but twice. I saw him do stand-up comedy in front of a live audience. He is a creative thinker. When he started his own business as a copywriter, to get attention, that's what you want to do to get business, right? He sent out a pencil in the mail. And it wasn't just an ordinary pencil, it was the number 2 pencil broken in half. And the headline said, "A good copywriter can help when the pressure is on." He got a lot of business. He's a bike riding enthusiast. His bike, of course, is colored PMS 123. number 2 pencil yellow. Is it still, is it, okay. And he's written extensively across Western New York and to other parts of the US. Okay, remember I told you, Mitch is a creative thinker, and he enjoys bike riding. Do you see where I'm going with this? Do you see how the Ride for Roswell maybe happened? Isn't that great? Thank you. We welcome Mitch Flynn.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody here today. I had to debate a little bit this morning because of what happened yesterday, how to tie what happened at Tops over on Jefferson Avenue with the ride. And one of the things that was encouraging to me was Candace Johnson, who's the CEO of Roswell. And this is one of the things I've really appreciated about my association with Roswell, which goes back more than 30 years. Candace sent out a message saying, abhorring what happened yesterday, but also saying that all the things that Roswell stands for are the opposite of what happened yesterday. And a lot of those, the connection, the community, healing, all the virtues of Roswell are all in contrast to what happened yesterday. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And in a sense, a little bit of what I want to say today or tell you about today ties into that too, which is my theme, which is faith, hope, and a charity ride. So, and I spent a bit of time thinking about what are all these terms, what do these things mean? Because I grew up Catholic, and faith, hope, and charity were either something you got drilled into your head in religion class or learned about some other way. And I realized that I didn't really quite appreciate what they meant, or really the depth of what they meant. So I spent, like everybody else, I spent some time on the computer Googling faith, hope, and charity. And what I came back with was that there's an action verb and a connection with each of them. And faith, the action word is belief. So faith means believing in something that you have no evidence or proof for. And you have faith in someone, maybe the big guy or the big gal, depending on how you look at it. And hope is more a connection with yourself. It's a wishing. Wishing is the active verb for hope. You wish something will happen. And that leaves charity. So what's charity all about? Well, charity is about other people, and it's about doing. So you have believing, hoping, and doing as the 3 action terms. So now I saw Ann on Friday to set this up, and I said, if I start to get ponderous, give me the slash across the throat. So how am I doing, Ann? So far, so good. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, how many of you are on the Deerhurst Disciples team? Just great. Okay. So, and kudos to everybody. Ann and I worked together for quite a long time, 10 plus years. I don't know how many it was exactly. And Ann, being a very talented graphic designer, did some of the work around the ride, and I think found out about the ride maybe through doing that too. So we have a connection not only with the ride, but also with our work and so forth and so on. So that's, and you'll see some of Ann's talent on display here too. So, okay, so why faith, hope, and charity? Well, we're in a place of faith. This is a church, and you are people of faith. Obviously, that's why you're here. But what really got me thinking about what the connection between the two was this, which is, this is a publication that Roswell put out a couple months ago. And you can see maybe down at the bottom the words, hope lives here. And I thought, well, that's kind of perfect in a way. And what the ride is about is often hope for a cure. Hope for a cure is the perennial wish. Back to that, what's behind hope is wishing for a cure. And it's not that it's just in a vacuum. There's good reason to wish for a cure, to hope for a cure. And I thought, well, this is perfect. And then what is this place of hope that I'm talking about? And some of you have been to Roswell, I'm sure. How many people have been to Roswell here? So you know this building, and you know what that looks like too. So and one of what I said about Candace, about my appreciation for being associated with Roswell for more than 30 years also has to do with the environment of Roswell too, that they turned when I first encountered Roswell, it was not really an inviting building or place to be. It was really it was a state institutional type of place, and since then, this building went up in 1999, it's become a really attractive and welcoming place, and that has a lot to do with not just the building, but also the people at Roswell too, and I think anybody who's been there would agree with that. So that's how I came to say faith, hope, and a charity ride, okay? Any questions? Probably a lot of them. You can save them for later, okay? Anyway, so let me continue here. So this is a little bit about how did I come to do all this stuff. So in 1975, a younger version of me, now I had hair back then, and I had quite a bit actually. I grew my hair really long, which made my parents crazy. And now I have no hair, which makes me crazy. So there's a thing about hair, I'm not really quite sure how to put it. So there I am, and I rode my bike across country, and that was took about 7 weeks, like 6-7 weeks. And the smiley faces are the two friendliest places in the United States of America that I encountered, and one was the eastern part of the state of Oregon, and the other was West Virginia. And I couldn't tell you why. Maybe because they're rural, people are not stuck up. West Virginia is very poor, but people were incredibly friendly. They'd buy me meals. I was riding my bike up a steep hill on a hot day, and somebody slowed down their car right next to me, which of course is usually not a good thing when you're on a bike. But in this case, they extended their arm out the window with a nice cold beer. And I thought, you deserve a smiley face in my PowerPoint presentation. So then I had, you're in a Presbyterian church, so you know what an epiphany is, right? A great moment of awareness. So I had an epiphany on my bike ride, which looked not exactly like this, but you'll get the idea. No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't a bear, it was a dog, and it was in the middle of Nebraska, and I got attacked by a dog that flew out of a farmhouse a quarter-mile off the road at a speed that I could not fathom, and it could have been really bad, but it wasn't. It just really scared me, and I thought, well, here's the lesson I learned. I had to question the wisdom of traveling alone, because I did this by myself. And I thought, if I had only had someone else traveling with me at the time, at least I could have gotten ahead of them and the dog would have gotten them. And that led to the thinking, well, and I had another connection here too. Okay, so this ties it into the church aspect, which is, everybody knows the story of Saul on the road to Damascus, right? He got knocked off his horse and couldn't talk and everything like that. I thought, well, it's a bit of a stretch, so you can cut me off, Ann, if you want to. And I thought, okay, well, that was my moment on the road to Damascus, which led to on the road to a charity ride. And here you are, Ann and Mark, and I don't know who else. Are you in there too? Okay. That's the thing about biking, and when you have a helmet and sunglasses on, it's often hard to know. I just waved to everybody, not knowing who they are. So faith, hope, and charity, and a charity ride. So that's kind of how that came about. I love this. This is the growth of the ride. So that's the first 24 years of the ride through 2019, and we were all set to do that. So we had raised $5.6 million in 2019, which is really a significant amount of money, especially considering that the first year of the event we raised only $100,000 with 1,000 people. And I'll talk about how the ride grew and why. So we were all set. Here we are planning away, you know, it's January 2020, February 2020, March 2020, March 10th, 2020, and then March 13th, 2020. The doors closed, the windows went down, everybody entered a new phase of life. So I'll get to that later, okay? I guess we're still emerging from that. So that was a little teaser about where we're going to be this year in 2022. So here's the background for the Roswell connection. This is Ann Joya. Ann Joya and her sister-in-law, Donna Joya, formed a group called the Roswell Park Alliance in 1991 because Ann's daughter passed from cancer. I met Ann in 1989 through my work. I did a video at Roswell, met Ann and her daughter. Her daughter passed in 1990, and in 1991, Ann formed the Roswell Park Alliance. At the same time, in 1991, it's painful, isn't it? You know, this is fascinating to me. That's my father-in-law on the right, Jack Goldstein, who died of cancer that year too. He died about 3 weeks after the Bills lost the first Super Bowl. And I did his eulogy and talked about, we watched the game together, and his words were, wait till next year. Well, there was no next year for him, unfortunately. And what the other reality is, when you lose personal loss and community loss feel the same. They touch you in the same kind of way. I guess what happened yesterday is an example of that too, of a community loss we all feel, and personal loss is a tighter version of that. So these two things happened the same year that Ann and her sister-in-law Donna started the Roswell Park Alliance. And this is, I call this the win. This is the Roswell Alliance logo, which we did, by the way. So this is the organization, the umbrella organization that manages the fundraising for Roswell now. Since it started in 1991, it's raised about $500 million, so a really significant amount of money. And within that, the Ride for Roswell has raised, as of last year, about $64 million of that. So 10% or 10 to 15% of the overall funds of the Roswell Park Alliance have been raised by the Ride. So now I'm going to talk about the ride, and I'll show you some highlights, some things that I think are a part of the story of the ride and why it has such, why it makes such a big impression on people. So 1996, the first ride and the first hero. So let me explain what's going on here. This is a pediatric cancer patient named Katie DiGirolamo, who I only met when I took this picture on Ride Day in 1996. I had heard of her, and we knew that there was a kid at the hospital who was raising a lot of money and really banging the drum and everything like that, but I didn't really know what to expect. And I went out looking for them. I had my camera on my bike, and I thought maybe I had missed them, but no, I hadn't missed them. They were just way, 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 way at the back. And the reason they were way, way, way at the back was because Jim, her dad, who's on the left in the purple t-shirt, and you can see the orange circle around his foot. What he was doing was, his daughter's on a tricycle, okay, he's kicking her. So every 20 feet, and she's having a blast. She's going, wee, and he's grunting, wee, wee. And I'm watching this and thinking, like, this is kind of extraordinary. And she was the year's top fundraiser, and was the next year too. I got to meet them in person. I took a lot of pictures. We made a little video slideshow out of it, and I tape recorded their narration. And he said, never will there be a prouder moment in my life than this. So he was all in, and she was all in. Now, Katie today is a oncology nurse. She's married and living in Syracuse. She's a Facebook friend, and her dad's a Facebook friend too. So I'm still in touch with them, which is great. So that was year one. We had 1,000 people and raised $100,000. In the next few years, as word got around the ride, you can see the bar chart in the bottom left. We went from 100,000 to 2.5, I think, is where we were in the year 2000. And this is a team that gathered around another pediatric cancer patient. Team name is Michael's Angels. They are still with the ride. This is the 27th year of the ride. Kathy Evans is the captain of the team, and these are her son's friends, and it's a timeline from bottom left, clockwise. And one of the pictures, I always like this, is graduation, high school graduation. Conveniently and coincidentally, Amherst High School graduation was in the gym at UB on the same day as the ride. So the kids went out, did the ride, quick changed into their graduation robes. I don't think they took a shower, but who cares, right? And then went to their graduation. So it was kind of a perfect connection for them. So that's just another really good story for the ride. And as things turned out, in 2001, we had a terribly cold, I mean like cold, and rainy day, which of course meant fewer people would show up and more people had problems like flat tires, but it also led to an overall questioning of whether this event could continue or not, or whether it had a good run, because it did okay. I mean, you can see the bar chart. It was up to $330,000, which is really good for any kind of an event in Western New York. But it was sort of the muttering started, and it was kind of like, well, what are we going to do? So of course, we all know what followed, and this is 3 months after the ride in 2001, and the picture you see of the little girl with the t-shirt is the next year's ride, 2002. So we tried to acknowledge what had happened to the country, to all of us, by showing the rider with a flag in his hand and everything like that. But you can see the circle around the fundraising total was just saying that everything did after 2001, everything took a nosedive, and same thing. And so this then really brought up, is this event going to continue or not? Okay, any hockey fans here? God bless you. Well, so what's with the hockey stick? You might think, okay, am I switching sports? No, I'm not. So in the field of epidemiology, there's a phenomenon called the hockey stick curve, which describes what happens when a virus like measles or COVID probably hits critical mass, has a long baseline period, and then shoots up. And measles is probably the best example for anybody who's had kids. So this is what happened to the ride. So I'm trying to make a point that the hockey stick curve and the growth of the ride are of the same thing, and it's called the tipping point. Tipping point is the arc in the hockey stick. It's a famous book by a writer named Malcolm Gladwell. And that's in fact what happened. So the reasons why it happened have to do with personalities, some luck, some good marketing, and other stuff. In 2005, we got Pat LaFontaine, hockey fans, who all know who Pat LaFontaine is. And he came in because one of the event coordinators knew him through his personal foundation. In fact, that's on the far right is a guy named Blue Hannon, who's one of the, he's a phenomenal guy, one of the great volunteers of the ride. He knew Pat LaFontaine. He's a big hockey fan. And his email handle is forever hockey. So he's like you guys, really into hockey. And he knew how to get a hold of Pat, so we rode, John, Blue Hannon, and I rode with Pat LaFontaine. We rode the 62-mile course on a rented bike. He got a flat tire within 100 yards of the start, not 100 miles, 100 yards of the start, and so forth. So he put us to the test, but I think we succeeded. Anyway, he spoke and helped put the ride a little bit on the map. And we also recruited SATISH MOHAN, who was the Amherst town supervisor then. And the ride went through Amherst extensively, so that was another. And Blue on the right had him on the back of a tandem bike. So basically he had a prisoner for 3 hours. So, and if you're a good jail guard, you can turn that to your advantage, which I think he did. So we got the town of Amherst on our side. And then the next big thing that happened was breaking the $1 million mark. Now here's where you can see Ann's graphic design talent in this. So the jersey I'm wearing with the black sleeves Ann designed, and the t-shirts you can't see quite as well, but on the far right they show the bar chart. Ann designed those two. And I think that was the first year of the Deerhurst Disciples, wasn't it? Or?
Yes.
So 2006. So this is also the story of the Deerhurst Disciples, how they started, and that's a long run. So 2006, 16 years or 18th year. So you're one of the longest running teams in the ride. Yeah, baby, let's go. So I'd say. Yeah, I said longest. Okay. Oldest is for other people. Okay. Longest running. Forget the oldest stuff. I used to have hair, okay? So I'd say the ride was the 11-year overnight success, because as long as we were sort of under the radar, doing okay, nothing really bad happened. Nobody really got, too concerned. But when we broke $1 million, the dynamic changed. We were in a different level. And that changed the dynamic of the ride in a lot of ways. Mostly for the good, I would say, and maybe entirely for the good. So how do we expand the ride? So this shows up to 2007, a big jump, and the simple answer is we increase capacity, and we increase capacity, meaning more people, more fundraising, more registrations. We increase capacity by developing new routes, and especially along the river. And Western New York has got, maybe you have done your Deerhurst Disciple rides along the river, which is great. The nice bike paths, Grand Island, all these different places like that. So we increased capacity, and now I'm going to just continue on through some highlights. And then the next big thing we did was we created, actually, this is 2008. Go back 5 years, 2003, we started a group called the Extra Mile Club. That was the first year for anyone who raised $1,000 or more. And I'm sure you're an Extra Mile Club member. You're an Extra Mile Club member. You're an Extra Mile Club member. So we have at least 4. Any other Extra Mile Club members? 5. Okay. So 6. Okay. 7, 8. Okay. So we have that's really good. So the Extra Mile Club started with 29 people who raised more than $1,000 in 2003, and it got as high in 2019, the last before the pandemic. We were up to about 1,700. So it's gone up in the same way the ride has gone up. This year we're at about 600. Pat Lord is one of the newest Extra Mile Club members. I get a report emailed to me. I send out congratulations to Extra Mile Club members and tell them they should raise more money. But I try to do it in a nice way, okay? So what can I tell you? In 2008, we came up with this idea, which came from 3 or 4 different places with 3 or 4 different people, to have a 2x2 police escorted ride that went from Roswell Park downtown to UB where the ride starts, and it's 12 miles. And 2008 was the first year we set off at 6 in the morning, which meant you had to get there in the dark, and add to the fact that it was raining, and add to the fact that there was lightning. And it looked like this was not going to happen. But in some ways, I feel like God is on the side. I mean, I do mean that sincerely, that we've had divine intervention for the ride. It's been pretty safe, and we've had bad weather, but we've gotten through it. And this was the same thing for the Peloton, where we got a window that we were able to ride for. It takes an hour to get to UB. And we got there, and this was the beginning of one of the best traditions of the ride. So about 150 people engaged in that, and everybody had the same matching jersey, which was, back in the beginning, was only for the Peloton. Now it's for the entire Extra Mile Club. And what you can see here, and this is one of the beautiful things about the ride, is the recognition that goes to the top fundraisers. So Carlton Street, which is what you see out here, which is the street immediately in front of Roswell, is painted with all the names of the Peloton riders. And Ann has taken pictures of this a number of times. And as you would expect, people will sit down next to their name, get their picture taken, or do something like that. It's really kind of cool. You know, a way to, I don't know that you really want to say, I think everybody should be proud about fundraising. Fundraising doesn't come naturally, and I think it's a challenge and an achievement for anybody to do that. And I don't think of it as ego or bragging necessarily. I just think it's sort of like doing a good job with something, like the satisfaction of doing a good job. So this is one way I think people get to express that. So moving on, our 15th anniversary in 2010, we did maybe you've seen these mosaics where you take hundreds and hundreds of pictures and you put them into, and Ann worked on this extensively, into an image. And so you see the big image of the Roswell Hospital building, but it's composed, this had about 5,000 images in it of all the different riders and different things like that. So, and we put it on a jersey. We're all wearing this jersey on the right, so you could go up to somebody, it's kind of weird when you get too close. Personal space is very valuable here. But you could get up really close and see, oh, there you are. You could be on your own jersey, like little, half of a postage stamp, basically. So that was kind of cool. So that was 2010. And then the next big thing that happened was 2 years later in 2012, and this was to expand the ride from a Saturday bike ride into a Friday and Saturday weekend. And the Friday night component was called the Celebration of Hope at UB in the stadium. And it was the first year we had Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl, da, 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 Jesse's Girl. You hear it on the radio sometimes. You turn it off or you switch stations. And Chris Spielman, who was a former Buffalo Bill whose wife had died of breast cancer, was the speaker. And we had a procession that you see in the upper left of the different departments at Roswell that are organized around disease groups with flags, different colors and everything like that. So you had this amazing group of people, procession and everything like that. And then the Peloton, which had previously always had to get up at 3 in the morning, I believe they could do that too, had the benefit of being able to get up at a normal time and ride into the stadium. And this is what that looked like on a beautiful night. And this is one of my favorite pictures, the bull, the bull in the background, the UB symbol and everything like that. And you can tell what a high, kind of like the marathon of the Olympics finishing in the stadium. This kind of a very similar idea. So that's been the tradition since 2012. So we're now in the 11th year of that. And then the next year, and I'm in the spirit of highlights of the event, the Peloton gathers on Carlton Street where you saw the names all written. And we got permission to get the names of all the patients in the hospital at that time on the upper floors, invited them to come out and look at the Peloton, and all the riders held these cards, each for a different patient, with just their first name and their diagnosis and all that. And so there's some bagpipes playing in a really powerful, probably one of the most powerful moments of the event. There's another one I'll show you too, showing the names of all the patients, which is just a way to make the connection. Faith, hope, and a charity ride. So charity, so the other sense of charity, I think of charity as like donations, that's one sense, but it's also doing what I said at the beginning, the action word is doing for others. And I think that's about as much as you can do in this format for others too. So one of my favorite moments of the event. And then back to the biking side. In 2015, we went to Canada. And you can see the fundraising is increasing, and that's the route. We crossed the border. We had to do a lot of negotiations with both sides of the border. And of course, you get to see the falls, which is, Pat, you probably have done that, right? Have you? Yeah, well, we don't have Canada still. This is our third year with no Canada because of COVID. But you can see, it's phenomenal, you know, that we have this in our backyard. And it's also easy, safe biking, too, to get there on the parkway. So when COVID is, you can go there now. I've been there. I was at the falls about 3 weeks ago. But you have to go through some hoops, and too many hoops for too many people for the ride. And then in 2015, this is my moment of personal embarrassment, but I'll get through it. Unbeknownst to me, or intentionally unbeknownst to me, several business people whom I know decided they should commission a sculpture and dedicate it to me, which was meant to be a surprise. Now, it wasn't a surprise because my mother got an invitation that said, don't tell Mitch. And I happened to be at her house, and I said, oh, let me open your mail. It's from Roswell. Let me see what it is. I opened the mail. So we had this moment of mother-son connection of like, okay, you know, zip the lip. So I knew about it, which was good because I got to thank all the people who needed to be thanked, of whom there are many. And that evolved into 2 years later, this, which was, there was the sculpture and my name on it. And I thought out of fairness, I don't know how to put it, everybody should be acknowledged. So I proposed that we create this, which was an event, and put everybody's name on bricks, which meant all the top fundraisers, all the top 10 fundraisers, the volunteers of the year, the top youth fundraisers, the original steering committee. So we had about 150 people acknowledged, and we had this is just a love fest. This is so great to get everybody together. We gave them all their own brick to take home, which makes a wonderful doorstop, by the way. Yeah, and Deerhurst Disciples has one too. Yeah, I saw it the other day. I took a picture of it, as a matter of fact. So, yeah, and that's something you should be really proud of too. Deerhurst Disciples are one of only about 30 or so teams that have raised more than $100,000 in their collective ride history, which is great. So, kudos to everybody. So we did this, and we've done that. That's evolved too. And then this is the other powerful moment of the event. So now this came about through another volunteer, Chris Eberly, who also is from the marketing tribe. And she created a replica of the ride logo and had it powder coated and rigged up so it could be lit as a torch on Friday night at UB. So the Peloton comes into UB. This is the survivor of a gentleman who passed from cancer, who was there with her kids, young little kids, very sad. And she was the first torchlighter. And then the next year, this is Chris Eberly, who is also a cancer survivor, whose brainchild the torch is. And then the next year, this is the sister of a patient who succumbed to glioblastoma. And you can see how powerful these are. And then, of course, this happened. So we're going to all set to light the torch, raise $6 million, have a blast, go to Canada. Yeah. Oh boy, right? So COVID happened. So let me get into this a little bit. So not only were we battling cancer, we were battling COVID, and cancer we're used to. We kind of know what we're dealing with. COVID, everybody is, who knows what we're supposed to do. So what you see here is, I will credit RideForRoswell staff team for reacting and putting together an event on the fly. March 13th, everything shut down. June, the ride was supposed to, 3 months later, the ride was supposed to happen. So they pushed out the date of the ride. They put it in many different places rather than one big mass start, because everybody wanted to social distance. They asked everybody to wear masks when they were riding. They staggered the starts. In the upper right, another thing that they did that they still do, which I think is brilliant, was they distributed signs throughout the community. So anybody who was, in the first year it was Extra Mile Club members, you could put a lawn sign out. Now it's anybody who registers, which is really a great idea. It just gets the word out there, gets the awareness out there and everything else like that. And then you can see lower right, how people are masked and riding and so forth. And that's Adam Benini from Channel 2 and his wife, Lori Turner. So that year, we raised a lot of money, considering $3.5 million. We were set to raise $6 million. But I think under the circumstances, everybody was really happy and proud of the team for putting together the event like that. So then last year, COVID round 2. So with the decline in cases, we were able to do the Peloton the way we'd done before. And we were also able to do the torch lighting at UB. And so that was the 4th torch lighting. And we raised a lot of money. So we're doing it almost where we were pre-COVID, which is exciting, and I think it tells you how much Western New York loves the ride. And people like you are behind it and fundraising, and that's the secret for the ride's success. So the question, obviously, is where did the funds go? So I want to just talk about that for a little bit and tell you some of the focus areas at Roswell for the fundraising. So there are basically 2. One is research, one is patient care, and so forth. Okay, take care. So one is patient care. And as far as the research end, Roswell has what they call a scientific advisory committee, and it's composed of about 30 physicians, clinicians, other people in the Roswell community, and it's like Shark Tank, if you know what I'm talking about, where it's a competition. So let's say I'm a researcher in genetics, and I have an idea that there's a genetic marker for breast cancer, and I have an idea that I want to pursue to test this. So I will make a proposal. This group, the Scientific Advisory Committee, will vote on it, and if I'm selected, I will get typically about $100,000, which would be for equipment, personnel, other costs to do research. Research is, like everything else, has a cost to it. So that's one of the ways that RIDE funds are dispersed. The other facilities and patient care, I didn't mention facilities, but this is the newest building at Roswell. It's the Scott Beeler Clinical Sciences Center, and the RIDE provided one of 15 $1 million gifts to get this built. So it's a significant contribution to the structure at Roswell too. So that's another one. And then for patient care, about $900,000 a year in quality of life. So cancer, of course, is not just physical, it's psychological, financial. The financial burden of cancer is significant. Societal, it has so many unfortunate tangents. So things like wigs, parking, accommodations, the day-to-day things that you wouldn't necessarily think about are covered by RIDE's funds that the RIDE raises. And then in the areas of scientific research, one of the big things is immunotherapy. This has become more and more a focus for treatment at Roswell over the last 10 years or so. This is Dr. Kunle Odunsi, who was then the head of that at Roswell. Cervax is a treatment devised at Roswell that's now in a multi-center clinical trial. It's meant to treat glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer, and it started in Buffalo, has taken it to the next level, which means it's being tested in Seattle, Texas, Boston, at different cancer centers, which means that the pool of available data from different patients will show whether this drug is effective or not. And if it is effective, the path of a drug treatment will start typically what you saw, the Scientific Advisory Committee, and then clinical trials, and then multi-center clinical trials. So it's really the next step before the final stage in success for treatment for cancer would be federal Food and Drug Administration endorsement and funding for things like that. And then one other one that's an unusual and exciting story is a drug called Simivax. This is Havana, Cuba, believe it or not. You may have heard of this. Roswell connected with the center in Havana and visited Cuba. This is 2 presidential administrations ago. And they've worked extensively on this. And this is a drug for lung cancer. And the interesting part about the story is that the Cubans don't have a lot of money. It's not a rich country, but they have a lot of brains. And they were able to come up with a way to treat lung cancer in their home country that translated to North America. So just an interesting connection and another success story for Roswell. Okay, so 2022, here we are. Can you believe it, 2022? Okay. And the ride started in 1996, so back when I had hair. I keep talking about that, you'd think I'd miss it. I had long hair, I had a beard. Yeah. I had as much hair as I could possibly. My parents, I just wanted to make my parents crazy. So we're returning to the traditional late June start, June 25th, and single start finish instead of multiple locations, which we've had the last 2 years. We're retaining some of the tactics, like the lawn signs you saw, that were really successful. So we learned, so the silver lining of COVID was partly just, necessity is the mother of invention, and what came out of COVID actually is still going on. And then the goal, long-term, is to raise $100 million cumulatively for the 30th anniversary in 2025. And now, as of last year, I think this year there's about 2 million, so this should say 66 million is the cumulative total. So, and part of the reason for that is things like this. Yeah, so, looks nice, doesn't it? You guys, congratulations, yeah. You should be proud of yourselves. It's really great. It's very few. Most of the other people in this category are corporate. There's some family teams, so church teams and family. So there's really the 3 kinds of teams are corporate teams, like West Herb, forget about it. They've raised a gazillion dollars. But the family teams and the church teams, like Deerhurst Disciples, are the ones to me that touch your heart the most because you got more heart in it, really is what it is, right? Good job. So that's my little presentation. Faith, hope, and a charity ride. So again, I'll just say the faith part, which is believing. There's no reason why you should. You don't have any evidence or proof, but it's believing in something, believing in someone, or a big guy, big gal. And then hope, which is for yourself, wishing, and then Roswell, place of hope. And then a charity ride, which means connecting, doing something for somebody else. So now, before I let you go, and Ann, I don't know if Ann's going to ask if anybody wants to support the Deerhurst Disciple team or anything like that. So she's going to say a few words. But thank you very much.
So much, Mitch. That was fantastic. Everybody enjoyed it, right? And I have to say, as a Deerhurst disciple, I couldn't be prouder of what we've accomplished. And you pointed that out several times in this presentation today. But as I've mentioned, we can do more. And so how can we help? What else could we do? You can be a donor, and many of you already have done it, and I say thank you. But if by chance you know somebody who might be interested in donating, you can do it through cash, you can do it through a check, you can go online and donate to our team. You can be a rider, and riding means a lot to each of us. Sandy, you're one who started as a volunteer and moved over to be a rider because you liked what you saw at the event. We all have our reasons for being a rider, whether it's supporting a survivor or doing it in memory of somebody. But we carry those names with us, whether it's on our shirt, like this, yes, like Yvette has, or in our hearts. And as Reverend Steve showed us, that we put the names together. One side's the prayer, the other side has every name that is given to us. And I'm going to send out an email to the church again, and if you have a name, whether you've made a donation or not, please send it to me. We ride for everybody. And as a rider, everybody's welcome to ride. You do not have to be a church member. You can just be somebody who wants to join a team. And then the final way is to volunteer. And as I just mentioned, the easiest way to get to understand the ride is to be a volunteer. And there's so many opportunities as a photographer, taking these wonderful pictures we saw, as a route guide, which I like to call a cheerleader, because they certainly have pom-poms or have bells, and they cheer me along the way and point, go that way. So I really have to appreciate those volunteers that are out there doing that. And then there's also, I would love to have some Deerhurst angels, some people that maybe sit at our tents and just greet those that are coming in from their bike ride to cheer us back in. Oh, I also want to be sure to mention that we have 17 riders, and already, so far, we've raised $8,800. I think that's phenomenal. Three of those have never done the ride before, and we have one person who has joined the team and chose to do it ride our own way. So they're going to do it separately from the ride. And maybe we'll have some more people joining us. You're still welcome to join. But that's all that I want to say. Thank you so much. This was absolutely inspiring. Everything you've done, everything you presented here, kudos. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.